SGA takes down the Celtics and Wilt all in one night. Plus, why the MLB might need more WBC. We'll get you caught up on the World Baseball Classic. And down goes Miami of Ohio. We'll break it down. Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. For the next 2 hours, we are rack stacked to pack, getting you ready for everything you need to know. It's Yahoo Sports Daily, hanging out with you right here. You just saw we got a lot we're going to get to over the course of this show. But, Caroline, we're going to start by merging two worlds that everybody wants to talk about right now. We're going to merge a little bit of NCAA concept behind the NBA as we start the show, because we're going to give you a Final Four. But not the Final Four like everybody's talking about with March Madness. We're going to give you the NBA Final Four. We have decided, based on everything that we had last night, that it is time to overreact to some of the games and the action we saw. So before we get to the Final Four, let's set all of this up by making sure people know we had massive games last night. Yeah, it's like this week's future NBA Finals preview. OKC taking on Boston. I mentioned it just a minute ago. Not only does SGA sort of will his team to victory in a very ugly game, he actually turns around in that process and breaks Wilt's record for consecutive 20-point games. Absolutely incredible, historic night. And in the process, SGA and OKC take down Boston. If this is a finals preview, inject it in my veins. I want all of it.
You say he wills his team to victory. I say he wilts his team to victory.
He didn't wilt under pressure.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. I'll be here all of next week. It is crazy. Wilt Chamberlain has been more relevant this week than I think any other week in my lifetime. It is absolutely crazy. But I mean, we were talking about this, about SGA earlier in the week, about how we believed that it was signed, sealed, delivered, that SGA was going to be the MVP after the Thunder beat the Nuggets. And then we were having some conversation throughout the week. And of course, new games, new data points always makes you change your mind a little bit. We're always so quick to react to things. And maybe after a while, I take a step back and think, well, maybe I shouldn't have been so quick to think that. But if you had any sort of doubt whatsoever in your mind, and I don't know how many people out there had doubt in their minds about SGA being the best player in the league, about being the MVP of the league this season. I mean, just watch last night. Just watch what SGA was able to do last night. I mean, you see the stats right there. 35 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. SGA is absolutely, positively unstoppable. This Thunder team is just so tricky to beat. This Thunder team, they didn't have their best night shooting. I mean, this Thunder team did not, have their same kind of feels like it can't miss kind of. Like, I mean, they shot 11 of 44 from the 3-point line. Like, that's not their best night shooting, yet OKC still finds a way. And on the other side of things, if you're a Celtics fan waking up this morning, I don't think that you can feel overly bummed or down about that loss last night. I mean, the Celtics had an opportunity to win it. Peyton Pritchard steps back for the game-winning 3 as the clock was winding down, and he just missed it. He makes that shot, and maybe our conversation about this game is wildly different. Maybe we're talking about the Celtics in a much different light, being able to take down the big, bad Oklahoma City Thunder without Jason Tatum. But they didn't, and that's not the conversation. So, but still, the fact that it was so closely within reach for the Celtics, I think should give Celtics fans at least a little bit of optimism about what this team can do in the postseason, especially once Jason Tatum gets back into the fold on a more consistent basis. But, I mean, OKC, man, I don't know who's slowing that man down, and I don't know who's beating this team.
Well, and, SGA, we saw his stat line earlier, but even SGA, when he was on the court after the game, asked about setting the record, mentioned that he felt like he was at times sluggish in that game, and that the team overall felt a little lethargic at times in that game. And I just kept looking at it, laughing as I'm watching him talk on the court. And I'm thinking, man, you just broke Wilt's record and and you won a game against one of the premier teams in the league. And your comment is, man, records don't really matter. Wins do. I'm glad we got the win. So now I'm glad we got the record. And it was a sluggish night for me. Oh, okay. Like, here you are just doing otherworldly things constantly when it is a sluggish night for you. That's how good they are. So, kudos for everything that game was last night. It lived up to all the hype. And I can't wait. I will again say over and over and over again something we're going to echo on this show a lot. the upper echelon of this year's NBA are very closely matched. So whatever version of these matchups we get are going to be incredible. But for SGA to take down Wilt is just something different. To do it the way he does it is just something different. To do it with this level of consistency is just something different. And I laugh because we get bored so often with what we just perceived greatness eventually just becomes monotonous to all of us. And I don't want to do that with SGA. I'm not going to do that with SGA. I want to appreciate his greatness. Also, we had another big matchup last night that we expected would give us tons of sort of indicators, let's say it that way, of who the best teams are across the league, because we knew that we were going to get some heat between the Nuggets and the Spurs. This game also really, really good. It wasn't an instant classic like the other one was, but it was a reminder that these two teams are going to battle it out too. And I found myself doing what I do with the Nuggets all the time, Caroline. Like, this is sort of my new, now, don't take a shot every time we do this, but like because you won't make it through the night. I'm trying to figure out exactly the right place to value the Nuggets, because I certainly watched the Nuggets win in San Antonio with Jokic being Jokic, and all of a sudden I look at it and say, man, we're so eager to anoint Wemby and the Spurs because it's Wemby and the Spurs, and because it's freakish, and because it's new, and because it's fun. And in the meantime, yet again this week, the Nuggets are over here saying, hey, guess what? We've won some of these things. We know exactly what the hell we're doing in it. And while everybody wants to make it about these other teams, the Nuggets are sitting here saying, I don't really care where we're seated. The Nuggets are reminding us there's nobody in the Western Conference that can look at the Nuggets, and the Nuggets look at them and say, man, I don't know if we can get past that team. Like, they are equally capable of taking down everybody.
If we could pull, there it is right there. Jokic's stat line from last night. That's stupid. That's dumb. That's not real. That's a typo. That's 31 points, 20 rebounds, 12 assists. But that's just another day at the office for Jokic. I mean, he is a walking triple-double. A triple-double is inevitable for Jokic. And then Jamal Murray adding 39 points. The fact that those two combined for 70 points is absolutely obscene. And I'm very much so with you, Fitz. I love this Spurs team. Absolutely love the Spurs team. And for this team to give up a 20-point lead at the beginning of the third quarter, shame on them. I mean, they totally just tinkled down their legs and totally just tucked their tail between their legs. And they blew a game that they had a commanding lead in. That's a game that San Antonio should have won. Credit to Denver for being on the second night of a back-to-back, down 20 points in the second half, and finding a way to scratch and claw their way back. Huge testament to this Denver team. And I know San Antonio was without Wemby, but also this team can win without Wemby. When you get 50 points off the bench, when you get 30 points from Stephon Cass, like, that's a game that you should be winning if you're San Antonio. But it's so easy for me to love the San Antonio team. And I have loved the San Antonio team because they're so deep and they can beat you in so many different ways. And they have the best defensive player on the planet and the actual alien that they have wearing a Spurs uniform in Victor Wembanyama. I don't know what it's going to take for me to fall in love with Denver the way that I have fallen in love with San Antonio. And I keep holding myself accountable that if you were to ask me right now, who do I trust the least out of the teams that I view as the four best teams in the NBA, I would say I probably trust Denver the least. Why? Why do I trust Denver the least, Fitz? I'm trying to dissect this. So I feel like I need to go to therapy and ask myself, why am I so hard to trust a team, to trust that man who is inevitable to put up 30 points and, 15 plus rebounds and at least 10 assists? Why am I so reluctant to trust Jamal Murray, who has been nothing but a consistent, ball handler and consistent scorer? Why am I so reluctant to trust this team, even when they overcame a 20-point deficit last night against a team that I would take over Denver in a 7-game series? Why?
I think we have decided as a culture over the last couple of years the Nuggets are two guys and then a bunch of everybody else. It's like the Nuggets are two guys and a bunch of everybody else. OKC's deeper. San Antonio feels like they might be deeper, and San Antonio has the fun of Wemby. We'll get into more of this later in the show, Teasties. But I was watching late in that game, watching Jokic shoot and looking at, and I was literally giggling. And as I'm giggling with all of this, I'm laughing, thinking, man, if it was Wemby, what would we be saying? Like, if you take that same stat line that we put up for Jokic, and that was the stat line for Wemby, what would we be saying? We would be saying, oh, my God, this guy cannot be stopped. Nobody knows how to figure him out. It requires too much range. There's nothing you can do against him. He can beat you on the glass. He can also beat you from far away. There's nothing that you can do to anticipate what's coming. And also, he's one of the best passers in the league. We already know all of these things. Isn't that kind of what we say about why we love Wemby constantly? Not the passing portion, but the rest of it. Like, all of the things that Jokic were doing, if it had been done by Wemby, we would have been screaming and we would have been running up and down the halls like Kermit the Frog with our arms flailing, saying, "Look at Wemby!" But it's Jokic, and we're just bored by it. Like, there is this moment with Jokic that at times reminds me of the way that we treated Westbrook after he averaged a triple-double for an entire season. The first time it happened, we were thinking, oh, my God, I can't believe this. The next time it happened, we're like, I've seen that before. That's where we are with Denver. And I'm not saying that's right. It just seems to be the way that we're covering this team. So let's figure it out. Right now, we're going to come up with the Yahoo Sports Daily NBA Final Four. Our top 4 teams, because we all know that there are more than 4 teams that look like they are elite, and we got to figure out where to rank these top 4. So, by the way, we didn't, kudos to us, slow clap. We didn't even mention the Lakers who won last night, too. All right, so let's take a look at our top 4 teams.
Yay.
This is not separated by conference. This is just our Final Four. So, Caroline, when we say Final Four, we both agree, there's no doubt OKC is the best team in all the land, right? We are in on OKC being there. I don't think there was any dispute. After what we saw last night, because we did this Final Four exercise before last night's games. We came up with this. We agreed on it. We were each asked our Final Four. We came up with the same Final Four. After last night, did anything change in the way that you perceive these Final Fours?
I may bump the Celtics up to the 2nd spot. And I think I'm leaving Denver at 4. Sorry, Denver fans, don't come for me. I'm not overreacting to just one game, but I would still take the Spurs in a 7-game series. I still trust the Spurs depth more than I trust the Nuggets. But watching what the Celtics did, even in a loss, even when they were held to under 30% from beyond the 3-point line, which is, the Celtics want to live and die by that. They just want to shoot up threes. So whenever the Celtics are kind of taken out of their game plan and what they want to do, when the Celtics are without Jason Tatum, when the Celtics are without Derek White as well, their best defensive player, who, if you put Derek White out on the court, how different does SGA look? Maybe not at all, because SGA is also another guy who feels inevitable. But in a game that was so close, in a game that was decided just by one missed Peyton Pritchard 3, you have to think if you insert Derek White into that game, maybe it feels a little bit different. Maybe SGA puts up 28 instead of the 35 or whatever it was that he put up. So even in a loss, I was really impressed with the Celtics. Even though the Celtics have lost to some of these Western Conference teams, there's things that I can pick apart, and there's things that I can say, yeah, well, but I still trust them. So I think I would bump the Celtics, honestly, up over the Spurs.
Okay, so I agonized over this morning whilst running. I was trying to figure out, okay, who is actually the better team between the Spurs and the Celtics? I'm just really trying to humble brag that I was running this morning. All right, so, but here's what I keep coming back to. Just a few days ago, the Spurs beat the Celtics. And so I'm going to keep the Spurs. I think we've done the right thing here because the Spurs beat the Celtics a few days ago. Also, I continue to go back to this one thing. In a 7-game series, I don't know how anybody adjusts to Wemby, and I don't know how Wemby adjusts to everybody else at this point. I don't know what they're going to do. San Antonio has been so good against the best teams in the NBA this year. I think that we've got this right, but the Celtics are, I think, the toughest team to peg here, which also then means I feel like I'm just disrespecting the Nuggets. Of all of these teams, if you had to bet in my house, and I have to bet your house because I think there's more skin in the game when your co-host house is bet. Who do you trust the most? Like, who is the one? If we have to bet our boss's house, who do we actually trust the most? Ryan Spoon's house is now on the line. Okay, so we're betting Spoon's house on OKC. Okay,
we're betting Spoon's house on OKC.
How does he feel? Spoon's a Celtics fan too. I'm not sure how Spoon feels about the Celtics fan having to watch OKC. I don't know how we're doing this.
So the way that I feel about my teams is I'm the toughest on the ones that I love. I would love if somebody bet my house on not my team. I don't know if Spoon feels the same way, but I think, we know Spoon knows this OKC team. I think he would feel comfortable with his house being bet on OKC. I would feel comfortable with my house being bet on OKC. I mean, OKC versus the field is a little bit of a scary bet to take, but I would say that I trust them the most. But you
Yeah,
say
I'd
it's fair to
swaggy
keep the
walk in.
Spurs
I would
over.
swaggy walk in. Like if we were playing credit card roulette and everything was on the line, it was house mortgage roulette, and I pulled OKC, I'm just full like swaggy walking
You're like, cool,
in.
I
I'm doing
won.
the whole
Awesome.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
enjoy
My
your
meal will be
tent,
free. My house is free.
Because your house is gonzo. I mean, I think that's the easiest question that we could answer about these 4 teams. Who do we trust the most? Easy. It's OKC. And frankly, I don't even really think it's close. The more difficult question is, who do we trust the least? Because you say, well, it's fair to keep the Spurs above the Celtics because the Spurs just beat the Celtics. Totally fair. The Nuggets just beat the Spurs.
God. And why do I trust the Nuggets the least? Why am I a fraud that trusts the Nuggets the least? I don't know. I don't know. By the way, OKC right now is plus 140 to win it. Obviously Vegas trusts them a lot. Why is it Denver that we trust the least? Like, I have the least proof of these 4 teams. If we're just ranking proof of concept, OKC has hoisted the Larry O.B., right? Denver has hoisted the Larry O.B. Couple of times. Like, Denver has been there, right? They know exactly what they're doing. Boston, like the one that hasn't is San Antonio. So you know what? I trust the Spurs the least because they haven't done it before. That is such a cop-out answer. I don't know how I feel about that.
It's fair though. I do think it's fair because it's not just they're the team that hasn't been there before. It's also a young team, and it's a team that's new to one another. So I think that's fair to say. I do genuinely believe in the knocking on the door theory, that if you need to be consistently knocking on the door to a championship to eventually break through. I mentioned that about the Timberwolves, about how, at some point when you consistently find yourself deep in the postseason and back-to-back Western Conference Finals, like at some point you're gonna break through. Maybe this Spurs team just needs to do a little bit more of that, especially in this West when you have, like you mentioned, a Denver team that just won a championship, an OKC team that just won a championship, these teams that know how to win in the playoffs. I can't say that I trust Wemby the least, though. Like, I totally see the rationalization for not trusting the Spurs. I get that. They're young, they're new, but Wemby, I trust Wemby. And how different does that game go last night if Wemby's on the court? Because I can play that same game, with Derek White and with Jason Tatum and the Celtics, and why I have such a high ceiling for this team. What about San Antonio? If Wemby's on the floor last night, I would love to see like a Wemby on Jokic in the postseason 1-on-1. How awesome would that be?
The West is going to be absolutely electric in the playoffs. All right, from knocking on heaven's door there, let's take a look at knocking on the MVP door, because SGA may have just pulled away, but the question is, does the NBA actually need someone to dominate? We'll answer it next.
Well, one of the things, too, that keeps coming up, I keep hearing, and it kept coming up in response to my story after the hearing and during the hearing, is, hey, why doesn't he just go pro? Imagine being a college kid and making $5 million plus.
It's pretty easy. It's just money, guys. It's guaranteed money. This is probably, for most of these individuals, the last time they can make this much money playing the sport.
How can I sit here in one breath and say the sport is broken when it looks like the audience is more pleased with the sport than ever?
It's not broke. It's just we've been drinking out of a fire hose for 3 years. But it can't just be pay them, kick them off the team, next guy, next team. I worry about these kids' long-term health and what they're going to do with their lives when they're 26 and 27, when they have no roots at any university.
James Rodriguez is reportedly joining Minnesota United. The main thing, as a fan of the league, I would just be excited to see him play. And then Minnesota against NYCFC, get to go see James. And what if that game is at Citi Field, bro? Queens is going to lose their mind.
It's going to go nuts. Astoria and Jackson Heights will be empty. There will be 3 Uruguayans, 4 Argentinians, and 6 Mexicans in all of Jackson Heights going, what the hell's going on? Where is everybody?
Admittedly, I'm a huge fan of Travis Hunter as a prospect. Do you have any sense of what his growth is going to be like, where he might be playing more and more, what his role is going to look like, especially on the offensive side?
The way he is, his personality, I think this injury in his rookie year is only going to just make him better. He was starting to really get going on offense, and we were starting to click. So who knows what the rep count looks like, but I know he's a special receiver when he gets the ball in his hands.
The NBA Most Valuable Player odds via BetMGM show you that SGA is absolutely pulling away, and that makes sense after yet another record-setting night. I feel like it's almost exhausting trying to figure out how many records are being broken by SGA constantly. Sportsbook books have him at minus 900, but we all see the big names there: Wemby, Jokic, Cade Cunningham, Jaylen Brown. A lot of people that deserve a ton of credit. After last night, is this clear-cut to you? I mean, we have, again, for anyone that didn't see it, SGA breaks Wilt's record for consecutive 20-point games, has a ton of big moments in another big matchup when everybody's paying attention. Caroline, is this basically just SGA's trophy at this point to you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's done. It's a lock. Put it in Sharpie. Run the ballot in. It's over. SGA is the league MVP. SGA is the best player on the planet right now. Because if you want to dissect all of these other MVP candidates, there's a yeah, but. I think that's fair to say. You know, Cade Cunningham was playing like the MVP, yeah, but then Detroit kind of went on a little bit of a skid, and that kind of poured cold water on the Pistons and Cade Cunningham talk. But, I mean, Cade Cunningham, don't get me wrong, has had an unbelievable season. Wemby, at times, isn't always the best player on the court for the Spurs. We just got done talking about it. This Spurs team, that it could be a Stephon Castle, it could be a De'Aaron Fox, it could be anyone on any given night that steps up. Taking nothing away from Victor Wembanyama and his presence and what he offers to the Spurs team. Like, I'm not taking anything away from these guys. I'm just saying that there is a fair, yeah, but with any of their resumes or with any of their cases. I don't know what that is for SGA. Like, what's the yeah, but? What's the rationale against SGA? You don't want a back-to-back MVP? He won it last year? Like, that is the only thing, Fitz, that I could even think of as an argument against SGA to be the league MVP. He elevates his team. He is a spark plug for that team. He is the face of that franchise. He is the nucleus of the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that we just said we trust the most out of any other contender in the association. It's SGA, hands down.
Look, I agree with you. SGA is the MVP. I also think this is a golden era of the NBA that isn't being appreciated enough. And to me, I go back to some of the conversations that we see all over, not just on this show, but on shows everywhere, about who's the face of the NBA. We started this season on our show back in August, and one of our conversations was, does Wemby need to be the face of the NBA? The more we get into this season, the more I realize the NBA doesn't need a face in this era. Look, I am the first to acknowledge I was a fat kid growing up, right? Fat kid that played the violin growing up. So, like, nobody picked me first in a dodgeball game. I get that. But think about the modern construct of walking into a gym today with the best NBA players. For a generation, if you walked into a gym and you had the best NBA players and said, okay, you get first pick, who do you want in your team? It was easy. It was like, I want LeBron. It was easy. I want Kobe. It was easy. I want Michael. Right now, none of this is easy. When you look at that list of MVP candidates we have right now, what it reminds you of is that we are in an era in the NBA that is very similar to me to the era we're in with quarterbacks in the NFL. Because whether you love Mahomes or whether you love Josh Allen or whether you love Lamar or whether you love Joe, like, there's a whole list of quarterbacks that NFL fans all love. And it's not that one dominates the other. They all together, it's like Voltron, 80s cartoon, look it up. They all come together and create this momentum for the league. Right now, what you have, if you walked into a gym and said, all right, Caroline and I are playing a charity NBA event against each other, right? We each get to captain a team. You walk in, and these are the guys that walk in: SGA, Wemby, Jokic, Cade, and Jaylen. Who are you taking? How are you taking them? Like, I think this is proof positive when you actually look at it that the NBA doesn't need a face, because when you are at your best, you have multiple faces. You don't need one tiger to rule your sport. You need momentum that comes from having a bunch of guys that are competing at the highest level. I want to live in an NBA world where we watch Jokic, Wemby, SGA for the next however many years just beat that. I haven't even mentioned Ant. Like, we watch all of these superstars just knock the snot out of each other every single year. That, as the old man in the room, is what was beautiful about 80s and 90s basketball, is that it was Magic versus Larry, but also there was Isaiah, and also there was Ewing, and all of these. There's also Barkley involved in this. Like, that's where you get an era that everybody turns around and says, oh, I remember. It's not about having a face, Caroline. It's about having multiple faces. And the NBA right now has that better than I can remember in any modern era for the sport.
I'm so tired of the face of the NBA conversation. Frankly, if it's because I think it's a little bit lazy. Because it's an easy conversation to have without, without a ton of knowledge or research involved. Like, it's easy to say, well, who's the face of the NBA is hurting because who's the face of the NBA? Just take a step back and watch and look. I have long said, I'll let the face of the NBA tell me who they are. And that's what we've had this year. And we just had all of their faces pop up on the screen. It's Wemby, it's Jokic, it's SGA, it's Jaylen Brown, it's Cade Cunningham. And oh yeah, by the way, it's also Ant. It's also Luka. It's also Jason Tatum. Like, all of these names of absolute certified superstars that on any given night, they are must-see TV. I got 2 words for you, must-see TV. On any given night, all of these guys are superstars, absolute superstars. So I'm tired of this conversation because just watch. Stop asking the question of who the face of the league is and watch the faces of the league do face of the league type of stuff. And I also think the face of the league, quote unquote, is not the face of the league without the other faces of the league. Like, what fun is Batman without the Joker? Like, what fun is SGA without Jaylen Brown and the Celtics last night? What fun, and I know Wemby didn't play last night, but just, work with me here just for the sake of the example. What fun is Wemby without Jokic? Like, what fun is one superstar if they're not squaring up against another superstar on any given night, and then another superstar on the next night, and then another superstar after that? And then we've seen so many young stars, Cooper Flagg and Con Knipple. They have emerged as guys that you have to pay attention to. And I love that. I love that we have had individuals and we have had teams that we weren't really talking about in, September, that we've been forced to talk about because they've proven to us that they are worthy of our attention. That is why I think the league is in a much better place, far more than, well, who's the face of the league? Who cares? We've got plenty of great players and a lot of great basketball to watch. That's the important thing.
It's funny because, to your point, the number of times I watch and think, okay, who's going to be on the billboard? And so much of how, when we watch NBA games, who are they putting up when they show you, this face versus this face? And when you think about what we're going to get in the playoffs, whether it's, KD versus Luka and, Jokic versus Wemby, it's just a list of Ant versus SGA. Like, these lists go on and on and on. And then you go to the East side, and you still have, at this point, 2 superstars with Boston that are just absolutely incredible. You have Cade. You have a couple of superstars in Cleveland that are absolutely incredible. Like, just the brand and name recognition for greatness in basketball, to me right now, is what's really powerful. It's when you have one face of anything, what we forget is that helps you in the moment, but then you always have a who's going to be the next face, who's going to replace this guy conversation. And when you don't readily replace it quickly, then it raises a bunch of question marks. Again, I'll go back to Tiger. For everything that Tiger meant for the growth of golf, the cloud of Tiger that hangs over golf to this very day, I think at times is detrimental to the sustenance of golf, right? Like, you can't just have one guy that suddenly becomes the only person that the entire world thinks of with your sport if you want to grow it the right way, which is why, again, to go back to the NFL model, what has worked so brilliantly for the NFL is that they are in what I truly believe is a historic golden moment of incredible quarterback play. So you have guy after guy after guy that we're going to be trying to figure out how to do. Like, if all these guys retire at the same time, I pity the Hall of Fame class trying to figure out what to do with what the NFL has. That's part of why the growth of the sport continues to just absolutely explode. It's not even about being the best on the NFL side. Like, Sam Darnold was the Super Bowl winning quarterback in the NFL, but that's not what people will obviously think of when they think of the sport going into next year. The first thought will be about the Mahomes and the Lamars and the Joshes and all of the different quarterbacks. I think we're in that moment now with where the NBA is, and that's something to appreciate in my mind, Caroline. Like, it's we worry so much about who's going to be the dynasty and who's going to be the face and who's going to be all these things. If we get this era where, Denver gets a couple of titles and all of a sudden we get, San Antonio gets a couple of titles and OKC gets a couple of titles and Luka sneaks in with one with the Lakers, I think that's when the sport is at the absolute best. So for me, as much as everybody wants to talk about a face, I'm going to continue to talk about the greatness. We're going to continue to talk about the greatness of the top of this league, because at some point when you want to build it up and not tear it down, if you want to look half full at all of this, the NBA, I don't know, has ever been better positioned than it is right now. Speaking of greatness, we are seeing greatness on the diamond. The World Baseball Classic has given us tons to look at. What's it mean from Major League Baseball? We'll give you sort of the tie-in that you didn't know you needed coming next.
What is the process as a receiver winning against zone coverage? Is it more settling down? Is it finding holes? Walk us through the process there.
So the first thing that you want to look at is those safeties, right? So then you just look at your triangle. So I go safeties to nickel backer or nickel or backer, and then out to that corner. Is it gonna be cover 2? Are they showing 3 right now because they're gonna roll into 2? Are those safeties low? Just seeing those subtleties are really what makes you a really good zone player.
You don't want to get ahead of yourself when you think that he's going to come and be a game changer. He's more of a managerial type that can operate at a high level. I've made the comparison to Jared Goff in terms of how he'll play the game within the right system. The best thing that has happened to Fernando Mendoza is Clint Kubiak bringing his system to the Las Vegas Raiders. And when surrounded by the right talent, he can have a lot of success.
We got the announcement that Floyd Mayweather will be taking on Manny Pacquiao in a rematch. People will watch, people will tune in, and I'm curious to see how it looks. I think they're going to be around the same skill level if they both come in healthy. And I really think it is significant that Floyd Mayweather is putting the O on the line.
100%. How do you make the competitive balance the most even? I think Manny and Floyd at this stages in their life, that makes it fair and exciting. So I'm in on Mayweather Pacquiao too.
Little Saban for us, because everybody loves Saban. So, give us your thoughts.
I knew that you were going to bring me in here and have me do Nick Saban for him.
Have you done Saban for Saban?
No, but I've met him.
Okay.
And he didn't know that it was me. He shook my hand, and I said, "Coach, Joey Molinaro, so good to finally meet you," as if he would know who I was. And he just looked at me and goes, "Yeah, well, all right." Walked away.
Someone remind Mark DeRosa that the games are single elimination from here on out. These are the jokes that are not going to stop with the World Baseball Classic. A reminder, DeRosa seemed a little confused or misspoke, depending on whose side you want to believe, when it seemed like he was, well, it didn't seem like he said that his team was in, but they still wanted to win a game against Italy that they didn't win, and turns out his team wasn't in. It's been a nightmare, but I'll say this, Caroline. The WBC overall, and you know me, I'll throw myself under the bus here. I am a casual at best with baseball. I have loved every ounce of what we've gotten for the WBC, right? There's relief now that Team USA advances, and I love the fact that Team Italy has been talking the trash the entire way. But this thing has been an absolute spectacle in every great way to me, especially with USA advancing. We can all take a deep breath. We can relax a little bit. But this has been a delight, I think, from everybody from diehards to casuals along the way.
It's been so fun. The energy, from the teams and from the fan bases. When we got his name is escaping me, but from Team Italy in his post-game interview, and he was like, "You're welcome, USA. We hope that you enjoyed watching us win for you from your hotel room. Looking forward for you to be back out here." Yes. Give me the trash talk. Give me the bad blood between these teams, because we don't get enough of that in baseball. And I do think it's changing. I do think that, now players are being highlighted so much more for their personalities and for their sense of style and their quirkiness, far more than they were maybe in the early 2000s. But for so long, baseball was a sport for old white men who were buttoned up, who didn't color outside the lines. Everybody followed the rules. It was America's pastime. That's great and all. But that gets boring at times. We want like the espresso machine in the dugout. Give me that. The way that the park in Miami has been popping and packed and loud and everyone's dancing and people are dressed up, people are in costumes, I mean, like, I've seen videos of the concourses in Miami and it's like, look, that's exactly what I'm talking about. People are waving stuff around, people are decked out in their team stuff, people are listening to music and waving flags, they're jumping up and down, they're dancing. Like, yes, that's my baseball. That's the sport that I want to be part of, not a yawn and boring everybody sitting in their seats and crossing their legs and doing what they're supposed to be doing. No, passion and fun and excitement in baseball. That's what this sport needs. And we've gotten it from the World Baseball Classic. And it does feel so refreshing going into this baseball season that's been preceded by so much talk about, will we have a 2027 season? Will there be a lockout? Players want this, owners want this. The business side of things, what the WBC has provided us is just fun baseball to watch and get and bring us into the season. And it has been a breath of fresh air.
I cannot say this loud enough. Give me all the bat flips. Give me all the espresso shots. And give me all of the trash talking. Give me all of the moments. Give me the passion. Give me the energy. Because I think what happens for a lot of traditionalists is they forget that the world has changed. The way, even when you look at the way entertainment goes, if you look at the way movies are cut, directors will tell you openly that they now have to cut movies differently for second screen experiences because they understand people are on their phones while they're watching a movie. So things that used to just be on film are now in dialogue because you're not looking at the movie itself. So you have to have someone on screen say, pass me that Coca-Cola, so that they get that chance to get the drink and everybody knows what's happening. That's how much society has changed in the last 10, 15, 20 years. Now think about the way we consume our sports. Everything needs to be faster. Everything needs to be more energetic. Everything needs to be more passionate. Everything needs to be more in front of you because sports aren't necessarily, no matter which sport we're talking about, we aren't necessarily at this spot where people want to put their feet up and just sit back and not think for 3 hours. We want some sort of frantic energy as an overall society. WBC has given me that. And Caroline, look, you and I covered the Nashville Predators when each of us independently at different times worked in the Nashville market. I always think of this. Back when the Preds first came to Nashville, I was actually one of the bands that they used in between periods. And at the time, nobody in hockey had ever done that. I had a buddy that I brought in and said, hey, play in the band with me in between periods. It's a great way to see free hockey. I love hockey. So we went in and we played. He was from Canada, and he sat there the entire time offended, genuinely offended by the entire game presentation because they'd never done it that way. That's now how everybody does things in hockey. Why? Because they realize that you have to capitalize on this. You have to capitalize on emotion. You have to capitalize on give a damn. You have to make people connect to your sport. That's what's happening for the WBC. There is a connection that doesn't exist in the same level night in and night out throughout the course of an entire season in Major League Baseball. And I don't know, it's a combination of national pride. It's a combination of people that maybe haven't had their voice heard around baseball. It's a combination of all of those things with the minor league baseball atmosphere, energy of like, I just want to be in the park and party. You put all of this together, and I don't know how Major League Baseball is supposed to capitalize on this sort of thing, but man, it's impossible for me to not watch WBC and wonder, why can't I get that same level of energy, give a damn, emotion between, a Red Sox game in the middle of July? That's what I want. That's what I crave. I would be fanatical about baseball if it had this level of energy night in and night out.
I think there's 3 reasons why. And that's not an excuse as to why Major League Baseball can't try and adopt this same level of passion. But 3 reasons why I think it's different. One that you just pointed out, it's national pride. We felt the same way about hockey, that how many people tuned in for the USA-Canada gold medal game on the men's side and on the women's side that probably won't watch an NHL game for the rest of the season until maybe the Stanley Cup final. Probably a lot. Probably a lot of people that are very casual hockey watchers at best, but they're like, it's America, so we're going to watch it. National pride, I think, is a big part of it. Number 2, WBC is a condensed tournament. You have 160 games in Major League Baseball. that you get almost tired. Like you almost dilute your product when there are so many opportunities to watch it versus when every game counts. When every game counts so much that even managers lose count of how many games that you've won. Cough, cough. Team USA. Like that. Like every single game has stakes on the line. It's a postseason feel. The third thing is we have 30 teams in Major League Baseball, and in the WBC, we have Aaron Judge playing on the same team as Pete Crow Armstrong, playing on the same team as Paul Skeens, playing on the same team as Bryce Harper, like stacked, like Team Dominican. When you have Tatis playing on the same team as Vlad Guerrero Jr., like that's you have so much talent condensed onto one roster that it does feel like, obviously all the games have high stakes, but when you have so much talent on one roster, that ratchets up the stakes even more. I mean, the fact that Aaron Nola, who was an incredible pitcher in Major League Baseball, didn't even make Team USA. That's why he's pitching for Italy, because he didn't make the cut for Team USA. Because we have so much talent in Major League Baseball that's condensed into a handful of rosters. That's another thing that I think kind of makes it feel bigger. And you can't recreate that in Major League Baseball. The Dodgers are trying. The Dodgers are absolutely trying. But when you have so many more teams, at least teams that are being paid attention to on a league-wide basis, then it's just, you can't recreate it.
All of those are very real and logical things. And part of the reason I constantly die on the hill of less games for most major league sports. I just think less games. I understand less inventory is not something anybody ever wants. Nobody wants to make less money. I get it. I understand why it won't happen. I just think that's a solution. Above and beyond that, I would love to at least live in a world where, like, we see, I don't know, the Reds down, like, slobber themselves with Skyline chili after every home run. I don't care what it is. Like, I would love to see some, well, that gets a little messy quickly. I would love to see some attempt at the same level of joy for the sport from the people playing it every single day. And I understand when you play 162 games, that's impossible. I also say, while nothing about the music business is the same as sports, I will say I have a bunch of record plaques hanging behind me because I was lucky enough to tour the world in a band that when we were at our peak, we were gone 300 days a year, playing over 200 shows a year. Do you think that I gave a damn about the 200th show? Peek behind the curtain. I did not. But it was my job when the curtain fell and we were going to go out and put on a 2-hour show. It was my job to act like it was the first time in my life I'd ever played If I Die Young, and it was the most important song of my life. Was it? No, I played that song thousands of times. I didn't give a damn. I acted like I did. I just want players to act like they care as much about a July game, which I know is impossible, but at least, man, you're out there. You're out there. And I know I hate when this argument's made, but I'm going to make it. I'm going to be that guy. You're making so much money to go out and play a baseball game. Play it with the same level of passion and joy so that it's palpable to me that's not making money, but is instead spending money to be in that stadium. If we saw the level of joy from the players be as transcendent in the Major League Baseball regular season as it is in the WBC, then I wonder if fans would find that same level of palpable connection. And until we actually see that from the players, and look, they may not want to do it. They may not even feel it. Pretend. I don't care. Act like you're having the time of your lives. I get that I'm asking a lot from Major League Baseball players to care about, late July baseball when their team's not contending. But, man, it's just hard to ask everybody in the world to invest in something that doesn't feel like it's invested in by the players themselves and by the teams themselves night in and night out, which will always be, I think, the chronic problem for Major League Baseball.
I don't disagree with you, but I think the pushback from the player side of things would be, this is our job. Like is our job. Like if you want palpable joy, go to the Savannah Bananas. Like they're professional athletes.
But that's why Savannah Bananas fill stadiums. That's why Savannah Bananas fill stadiums. This is our job. This is our job. Like
our job is to entertain. It's not a baseball player's job to entertain me. It's a baseball player's job to win baseball games. It's not like how many times do we see Patrick Mahomes run out onto the field and jump up and down and do a bunch of jumping jacks with a big old smile on his face for entertainment value? We don't ask football players to come out and play with a certain level of joy. And I'm not saying that I disagree with you, because I think that baseball needs more excitement and more energy, and that starts at the level of the player. Same thing that I said with the NBA, with the All-Star game. If players don't want to be there, I don't want to watch. So I don't disagree with you, but I am saying the other side of that is our job is to win baseball games. Period. Point blank, period.
And NBA players' jobs are to win NBA games. And then we sit there and say, why does the regular season not matter? Because it doesn't matter to the people on the court. It doesn't matter to the people on the field. It doesn't matter to the people. The only thing that matters about the regular season in most marathon sports is the money that's being made by everybody. And if you're going to, at that point, if it's the most important thing is making your money, then, man, at least make me feel like I'm getting a value in entertainment doing it. You're right. At the end of the day, wins and losses are what will always dictate success. But, man, I got to feel like there is some obligation to entertain in that process. Like, again, I'll go back to the music thing. Like, was it my job to play a perfect show, or was it my job to be entertaining? To people, at some point, it's a little bit of both. Like, if Taylor Swift goes on stage and she's terrible, well, nobody's going to go see her again. But if Taylor Swift goes on stage and she's perfect, but she doesn't run around and entertain, nobody's going to see her again. Part of the job to me, when you're making the 1%, to live to make a king's ransom to play a child's game, part of the job is to entertain. One thing that I know is always entertaining: indoor football. It is a historic weekend coming for Yahoo Sports, for me, for Caroline, and for the IFL. We'll tell you about it next.
Criticism like that from a coach in the moment, how are you feeling when that's happening and the film's on screen?
Yeah, man, I think it's you listen more to the message and not the tone of the message. I mean, I think it's actually better to get called out than to not, because it shows not only like you're not worried about getting your feelings hurt. Like, they're not worried about hurting my feelings. And that's something I love about our coach. Like, he's not really worried about hurting your feelings. He's going to tell you, shoot it to you straight. And for me, like, I've always thrived under coaches that do that.
We are ranking the biggest robberies in MLS history, the players who looked at their team owners and said, thanks for the cash, and gave absolutely nothing in return. If your team is on this list, we are very, very sorry. Danielson, FC Dallas. His contract was for $879,000.
If you're watching this, look at his photo. He don't even look interested to be there in the photo.
With 10 appearances, he effectively got nearly $100,000 per game.
I'm sitting there watching Unreal, and they're talking about you in WWE at the Royal Rumble, just being thrown into the ring. You ever getting back in the ring for one of those opportunities again after that injury?
Man, I don't know. I mean, we got WrestleMania coming up, so you maybe see me in there, you maybe not. I'm just not trying to get beat up, but we'll see. We'll see. Like, I got beat up too much times. My body can't take that anymore.
We'll teaser from the one and only Nate Diaz, unfinished business. And then he expanded on that on Twitter and said, I'll see you soon. I'm coming.
What about Dustin? Dustin versus Nate. Big fight. That could be a co-main or a main for a big fight card.
One that we always wanted to see.
One that Dustin has said, that'll get me out of retirement. The UFC could use him more than ever. They need stars now.
You're seeing it right there. This weekend, what kicks off on Yahoo Sports TV and the Yahoo Sports Network, the IFL, the Indoor Football League season. We're going to have a historic start to it. Quad City Steam Wheelers taking on the Fishers Freight, 5 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Again, you can watch it on the Yahoo Sports Network. You can watch it on our YouTube channel. You can watch it on Yahoo Sports TV. You can watch it everywhere. And when you watch it, you will see Caroline Fenton, myself, and our buddy Nate Tice, who you watch on Football 301. Caroline, this is going to be electric. You'll be on the sidelines. I'll be doing play-by-play, and Nate will be doing the color work. He'll be doing all the hard lifting on it. Super excited for this. This is going to be an incredible moment for us. We're excited to have this historic opportunity, and we're excited right now to talk to the IFL Commissioner. Todd Tryon going to join us, and we've got Commissioner hanging out with us now. Commissioner, thanks for the time. We're excited. I know you're excited. Give everybody sort of what it means to the IFL for this partnership with Yahoo Sports.
Well, Fitzy, appreciate it. I am sorry for technical difficulties here. I'm out of my element as we speak. But listen, I can't explain how excited we are for this partnership, and going through the process with Ryan Spoon and C15, and obviously your guys' group. We're extremely excited for what this partnership's going to look like and what it's going to build into.
Yeah, I will reiterate the sentiment from Fitz. I am so excited personally to be part of this broadcast, and I know everyone here at Yahoo Sports and the Yahoo Sports Network is overjoyed to be in a partnership with the IFL. But from your perspective, why was right now the right time to partner with the Yahoo Sports Network?
Over the last 3 years, Carolyn, we have strategically positioned ourselves to get on a platform such as this. It started with, cleaning up our field system look, cleaning up our presentation, cleaning up our uniform situation, and putting ourselves in a position to partner with somebody who's wanting to grow the way we're growing. And so when the opportunity came with Yahoo Sports and we understood what your guys' initiative was and what the agenda was, our goal was to take our league from a regional platform to a national platform. And the only way you can do that is to partner with a monster like Yahoo Sports, who is obviously has launched their FAST channel and is looking to grow their sports footprint.
Yeah, and we're talking about a league that's been around for a long time. This is the 18th season for the IFL, and for anyone that hasn't watched, this is everything that you love about indoor football. It's a 50-yard field. It's mass chaos. There are points galore. What's your favorite thing about the indoor game?
I would say it is. It's fast break football. And I think the coolest thing from a fan perspective is there's no professional sport where you can be this close and intimate to the players and the coaches and what's going on. You have to have your head on a swivel if you're sitting on those front couple rows, because you could catch a ball, you could catch a helmet, you don't know. But it is an exciting, fast-paced game.
It is such a fun and fast-paced game. I say it's everything that everyone loves about outdoor football condensed into one game. It is just pure. It's football in its purest form. But of course, IFL rules are a little bit different from maybe rules that our normal watchers and listeners are normally accustomed to. So what are some specific rules that you personally love about the IFL that makes this league so special and so much fun?
For starters, it's 8-on-8. So there's fewer players in a more condensed space. We do have some rules that are designed defensively that you can't do with the offense. It's by no means to say give the offense an advantage, but because of the size of the space, there's just certain rules that you got to put in there. You've got two guys in motion, which is different than the outdoor game. There's no out of bounds. Padded balls is the out of bounds, and once they obviously go into the stands, then they're out of bounds. The field goal posts, they're half the size of the outdoor game, so the kicking game is definitely a challenge. The coaches are on the field calling plays, which makes it pretty cool from a fan perspective. And there's probably a list of other things that I'm forgetting, but as I say, at the end of the day, it's there's music pumping in between plays, and timeouts. You got on-field promotions, and it's very fan and engaging and family friendly.
Look, by the way, for anyone, peek behind the curtain here, we had our first call to figure out broadcasters and everything. Caroline and I were laughing because they told sideline reporters, do not wear shoes you can't run in because you might get run over. So I'm just rooting for, our game's Saturday. I need Caroline in one piece on Monday. So, we'll be watching from the press box, Tyson and I, and just making sure we'll play-by-play, Caroline. If somebody's coming at you, believe me, you will be suddenly part of the play-by-play. Look, that's the way it's
It'll be my tryout.
run.
Everyone can see my speed. I pack sneakers. Put me in, coach.
It is wild, though, Coach. We had the chance over the last couple of days to talk to the coaches for our game that we're going to be calling again. It's Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern, and we've got, Quad City taking on Fishers. And talking to the coaches, hearing them talk about development of players and sort of the fine line between, hey, we want to make a great arena team, we want to make a great indoor football team, we want to make a great indoor football product, but we also want to turn around and help these guys develop to get to the next level. You guys, as a league, the IFL has had a ton of success getting guys to other levels of football as well. So how much does that sort of play into part of the process for the players to you?
Our mission is to provide a platform to build your brand. And whether you're an announcer, whether you're an official, whether you're a player or a coach, use our platform to elevate whatever it is you're trying to do. And a lot of players come in here, they want film to move on to bigger leagues, and we can provide that. And a partnership with Yahoo Sports just made our platform that much bigger. The light is that much brighter. And, we're just excited for the opportunities that our product can provide for people.
And we're excited to be part of that as well. And this season, it's something new with the IFL. You've introduced an in-season tournament called the IFL Cup. Walk me through this. What was kind of the process in coming up with the idea for the IFL Cup, and what can some fans expect from watching this in-season tournament?
It is. This is going to be a unique, crazy ordeal. And Jared Widman, I don't know if I'm giving him credit or I'm going to hammer him on this. We'll see what happens here. But, he's one that brought the concept to us. And, there's a lot of logistics and details behind it. But we've got 4 teams, 4 of our biggest brands that will be going up there to the American Dream. And in 5 days, 6 days, we're putting on 4 games. And we're going to have somebody come out of there as a winner. If this goes off as we anticipate, we expect this to grow as we move on. But pretty exciting. If you haven't been into the American Dream Center, unbelievable. I didn't realize that such a place like this exists, but it does. And we're gonna throw a football tournament inside of it.
Yeah, I cannot wait for the Cup. It's such an electric experience. And you talked a little about Jared, who's done a great job with obviously the business. You guys are excited about this year. We're going to be new to traveling to these atmospheres. I know you can't have any bias because you're the commissioner. So when I say IFL cities and atmospheres, what are some of the moments that really stand out to you as the best moments, best home environments, coolest original places for people to see?
The one you're going to this weekend, Fishers, they do a great team. They're going into their 2nd season, and they're an ECHL hockey team that has now implemented football. And last year their first couple games they sold out, and I expect Saturday night to be a very lively environment with a brand new arena. Their field presentation, everything looks A+. So you guys are walking into a great environment. But Quad Cities, the team that they're playing, they also create a really great environment there in Moline, Illinois. And Arizona Rattlers and Glendale do a great job. Vegas, obviously, they do a great job. Green Bay, that's the game I'm going to on Sunday afternoon for our IFL Hall of Fame. They do a great job. Tulsa, Oklahoma, last year they set our record with 16,000 plus for one of their games. And so I don't want to leave anybody out. I know Jacksonville does a great job down there in Florida, but our teams are working their butt off to create an environment that people want to be a part of.
Well, we are beyond excited. We are beyond honored. This is going to be an incredible, like I get goosebumps just thinking about it. I cannot believe we will get to be the first people ever to say welcome to the IFL on Yahoo Sports. That is what we will say tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern on Yahoo Sports Network as we get the Quad City Steamwheelers taking on the Fishers Freight. It's going to be absolutely incredible. Me, Caroline Fenton, Nate Tice, Commissioner, can't wait to hang out with you down the road. Bummed you're not going to be with us in Fishers, but hopefully you'll be with us soon enough that we can all hang out and get some time together. We appreciate it. Congratulations. This is a huge moment for us. It's a huge moment for the league. It's a huge moment for Yahoo Sports. We're incredibly thankful for letting us be a part of it, and thankful that you gave us some time this morning to join us.
Greatly appreciate it. Looking forward to hearing you guys' game on Saturday.
Can't wait, Commissioner. It's going to be great. You
Thanks,
guys should
Commish.
check it out. Yahoo Sports Network. Going to be electric. Coming up next, we're going to figure out the top 5 of the NFL draft now that free agency is done. That's next. Yahoo Sports Daily.
Well, one of the things, too, that keeps coming up, I keep hearing, and it kept coming up in response to my story after the hearing and during the hearing, is, hey, why doesn't he just go pro? Imagine being a college kid and making $5 million plus.
It's pretty easy. It's just money, guys. It's guaranteed money. This is probably, for most of these individuals, the last time they can make this much money playing the sport.
How can I sit here in one breath and say the sport is broken when it looks like the audience is more pleased with the sport than ever? It's not broke. It's just we've been drinking out of a fire hose for 3 years. But it can't just be pay them, kick them off the team, next guy, next team. I worry about these kids' long-term health and what they're going to do with their lives when they're 26 and 27, when they have no roots at any university.
James Rodriguez is reportedly joining Minnesota United. The main thing as a fan of the league, I would just be excited to see him play. And then Minnesota against NYCFC, get to go see James. And what if that game is at Citi Field, bro? Queens is going to lose their mind.
It's going to go nuts. Astoria and Jackson Heights will be empty. There will be 3 Uruguayans, 4 Argentinians, and 6 Mexicans in all of Jackson Heights going, what the hell's going on? Where is everybody?
Admittedly, I'm a huge fan of Travis Hunter as a prospect. Do you have any sense of what his growth is going to be like, where he might be playing more and more, what his role is going to look like, especially on the offensive side?
The way he is, his personality, I think this injury in his rookie year is only going to just make him better. He was starting to really get going on offense, and we were starting to click. So who knows what the rep count looks like, but I know he's a special receiver when he gets the ball in his hands.
So the Raiders defense I love this tweet, just added Kwity Paye, Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, Malcolm Kuntz, Eric Stokes, Teron Johnson. They've got a new defensive coordinator. Oh, and an extrovert motivated Max Crosby. So things feel pretty good. I'm not going to lie, but this is.
I hope you're feeling yourself, Fitzy. You should.
I am. You know what?
Yourself.
Caroline, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, this is what we all do, right? At the end of the regular season, we're like, I give up. I know exactly. I say this all the time. It's my relationship 101. It's like the day you break up with the girl, you're like, she's crazy. I want nothing to do with her. That's how we all were at the end of the regular season. Then like a month later, you're like, I don't know. I kind of miss her a little bit. And then that's like the beginning of free agency. And then you're like, it wasn't all bad. Like I love the restaurants we used to go to. That's like free agency hits. And then you get to the draft and you're like, I missed how we always like the same things. And then but by the time you hit the summer, you're back with her and all your friends are like, you're crazy. Week 1 of the next regular season, you find out you're crazy. It's a whole process. But I'll say this, for many teams that
football fandom
today, thank you, 101. For teams that suck, you don't feel like right now you do. You feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through the top 5 picks in the NFL draft now that we've gotten through free agency, and we're going to make sense of what's next. So for the Raiders, who've made the key additions we just mentioned, also they added the best center in the market, and Jalen Naylor, a wide receiver that Matt Harmon told us on this show. Go check it out on YouTube. He absolutely loves. With that in mind, I think you and I both agree there's not much to mock here. The Raiders are going to take Fernando Mendoza with the first overall pick. Mm-hmm. Have they done what they need to do to set him up for success in your mind?
They've done pretty darn close to everything they could do. You know, if I want to be nitpicky here, because I think the Raiders had one of the best free agencies across the NFL, I would say more offensive line depth is never a bad thing, especially considering how terrible the Raiders' offensive line was last year. But they did the right thing in bringing in the best center, who was viewed as one of the best centers, at least in the NFL, and Tyler Linderbaum. But I would say, more offensive line is never a bad thing, especially for a young quarterback. I would say the other thing is bringing in a veteran quarterback. There has been a lot of rumbling, some rumors that the Raiders are kicking the tires on the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. And of course, Kirk Cousins is looking for a certified starting job somewhere, not just a bridge quarterback, not just like a mentor kind of job, which is what his role would be in Vegas. But I would say like a Kirk Cousins type would be the perfect type of signing. Not something they're going to do on the first day of free agency, something that I would still add to my list of wants for the Las Vegas Raiders. But other than that, I love what they've done. They bolstered up the defense. They even got Max Crosby. And they bolstered up the defense. They added the best center in free agency. I think the Raiders have done a really, really good job, at least on paper. If that comes to fruition and wins in the fall, then great. But on paper for right now, and what I affectionately call everything is going to be fine season, it's the time of year when fans can just like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine if we didn't sign anybody in free agency. Everything's going to be fine. And everything's going to be fine season. I think the Raiders have done a really good job.
Yeah, look, I feel really good about it. I agree with you. I think more offensive line help and more help in the wide receiver room are two things that felt inevitable to me when I believed that the Raiders had the 14th pick in the first round of the draft. Obviously, the Max Crosby trade falling through means they no longer have that. Can they still address those things? I once had a GM tell me that if you get 5 or 6 quality starters in one offseason, you have had a Hall of Fame level offseason. So, look, if the Raiders can get 5 or 6 new starters in one offseason that all contribute, that's Hall of Fame level. we'll see how it all plays out. But as of today, I think this is a much more talented team than it was just a few weeks ago. Add into that Clint Kubiak, who you see there running them out of the tunnel essentially in that Raiders hoodie. I think it's been a very good offseason, and they've done everything they can do in one offseason. I'll go on the record. The Raiders feel like they're probably a 6 or 7 win team at best. And like that would be like, oh my God, I can't believe we got to 6 wins this year. I think it's a process getting yourself out of being the worst team in the league, but these are huge steps forward. So let's keep going through the rest of the top 5. What about the New York Football Jets, right? Because the Jets didn't really have a path to a quarterback. So they trade for Geno. Geno Smith will be their starting quarterback this year. Now we're trying to figure out what to make of the rest of this roster. They make a few acquisitions, but where we sit right now with the Jets, what do you think they should do it to?
Trade back. I think the Jets should trade back and get as much draft capital as possible, because all the moves the Jets have made have pointed to we are trying to be good in 2027 and beyond. Like we're okay with being bad this year and taking a swing at some of these quarterbacks in next year's drafts, whether it's the Dante Moores, the Arch Mannings, the, insert out whatever 2027 quarterback declares for the draft here. I think that bringing in Geno Smith is the perfect example of that. I don't think that you bring in Geno Smith if you're like, you know what, let's try and go for it. Love you, Geno Smith. You're not that guy, pal. I think that Aaron Glenn is kind of a walking sacrificial lamb at this point, which I hate for a guy who's a Jet through and through. He played as a New York Jet, but I think the Jets have all of their sights set on the future. So trying to acquire as many assets as possible in this year's draft and beyond, I think would be wise. Like if the Jets can get a couple first-round picks in 27 and 28 by trading back to, let's say, I don't know, like around that 8 to 12 area, I think that would be a total home run for the Jets. But obviously you need a trade partner for that. And there's not a guy in this year's draft that feels like the clear-cut, definitely 1,000% going to go to. Unless there's a team that says, okay, we know the Cardinals are going to take our guys, so we're going to try and leapfrog them, trade up to number 2, and take our guys. So of course you need a trade partner. If a trade partner doesn't exist on the Jets, it's very simple. Take the best player available. Take the best pass rusher available, whether you believe Sonny Styles is the best player available, whether you think Jeremiah Love is the best player available, whether you think Caleb Downs is the best player available, if you think David Bailey is the best player available, whoever the Jets have at the top of their board is who they should take, because the Jets have needs everywhere, and they need, above all else, good players. So just take the best player available. It's that simple.
Yeah, I really honestly agree with the best player available process on this. Now, because of that, a couple of things factor in. The Jets have multiple first-rounders this year. They have multiple first-rounders next year. They also, for anyone that hasn't paid to the minutia of it, 4 teams finished with the same record this year as the worst in the NFL. So the Raiders, because they had what was deemed the easiest strength of schedule, got the first pick. After that, it rotates. So the first pick in the second round of the NFL draft actually belongs to the Jets. So they almost have 3 first-round picks this year. So I went back and forth on trying to figure out what the right thing to do was, because, frankly, you just mentioned Caleb Downs, and I think Caleb Downs is the best player in this draft. I will go on record. I think Caleb Downs should be the second overall pick in the draft. I don't know how you do that with the number 2 pick because he's a safety, and I get all of those things. So I was torn on that. I would love if they could trade down and still get themselves into that situation, but I presume that that's going to be tougher to do. So I just, if I'm mocking him, I mocked him with David Bailey. You mentioned him earlier. The numbers were through the roof. The athleticism is through the roof. The potential is through the roof. Could the production be a little bit higher? Maybe for some people, but I think David Bailey is going to be perceived as a superstar from the day he is drafted. This is the top 8 or 10 in this draft are very good. So I gave him David Bailey. If they could somehow trade down and still get Caleb Downs, then they would be winning this entire process. I just didn't want to take that risk. So David Bailey it is. That's where they end up. That brings us to the Cardinals at 3. Cardinals, where do you go if you're Arizona? Who, by the way, need everything. And I think you and I can both agree quickly here. Ty Simpson is not going to be a top 5 pick to any of us. So these teams that need another quarterback, I don't imagine it's Ty Simpson. So knowing that the Jets might address that later in the first round, or the Cardinals might try and do something later, but knowing that's off the plate, where do the Cardinals go?
I think whichever pass rusher the Jets don't take. And it's I feel like this draft is a little bit funkier, or at least different than some previous drafts that I've covered. In previous drafts, there's a very clear this guy's going 1, this guy's going 2, this guy's going 3. Whether it's because of how we view them, whether it's because of positional need, whatever it might be, there are very clear and obvious top 3 picks, top 5 picks, whatever it might be, at least in some drafts. This year, I think it really boils down to what you value and what you need. Because I just laid out so many players: Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, David Bailey. I would throw Ruben Bain into the mix, Jeremiah Love into the mix, Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon on the offensive side of the ball. There are so many of these players that I think the differences between them, or at least their value that they can bring to a respective NFL team, the difference is maybe razor thin. So it all boils down to personal philosophy. It boils down to your coaching style. It boils down to your needs. So that's why I think it's as simple as the pass rusher that the Jets don't take, because I think that it's a pass rusher heavy draft. And I think we all have kind of come to a consensus that the pass rushers are probably, outside of Fernando Mendoza, the best, value and most plug and play type of position. So for me, it's, let's say if the Jets take Arvell Reese, I think the Cardinals take David Bailey, and vice versa, or Ruben Bain. The Cardinals just need defensive talent. Like, their defense was terrible last year. I mean, everything was terrible with the Cardinals last year, but the defense was stinky.
Ruben Bain would be a great pick for many teams, but now that we know that he has T-Rex arms, he can't even grab his own card to put it in. I think he's going to fall
tiny.
right or wrong. Whether he should or he shouldn't. We saw this the same, because I put him in for Arvell. Arvell Reese, I think, was the pick at 3 for Arizona, and Arizona gets the benefit of having the Jets make the tough decision. To your point, I think that for me, Bailey and Arvell are sort of side by side. And if I'm the Cardinals, I'm like, cool. Whichever one you want, you take, and we'll take the other one. It's that much of a tie for me. So because I gave David Bailey over to the Jets, I give Arvell Reese, who has, again, I mean, the measurables on these guys, the athleticism on these guys. Say what we want about this is a weak draft. No, there are some players in this draft that I think are immediate impact. If you can get Arvell Reese, you run. You don't walk that card, you run it up, which brings us to the Tennessee Titans, a team you and I know well. We both worked in the Nashville market at some point, and a team that I'm just like, Caroline, to me, this is simple. If we get to this point right now, it's Jeremiah Love. I know.
Yeah.
Everyone, you can't draft your running back then. I don't care. I do not care.
Yeah, you can.
If you're the Titans and you can get Jeremiah Love to team him with Cam Ward, I am going to do that 100 times out of 100, and I'm going to keep figuring out the rest of that team. It's Jeremiah Love, and it isn't even close for me.
See, it is close for me. I think the Titans, if Arvell Reese and David Bailey, and obviously Fernando Mendoza are off the board, I think if the Titans choose between Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, and Jeremiah Love, especially when you have a defensive-minded head coach now, and Robert Saleh, I'm sure he would be salivating at the opportunity to get his hands on Caleb Downs. It's the same thing with Jeremiah Love and Caleb Downs, in my opinion, of you can't take a safety that early, you can't take a running back that early. But sometimes some players are so good that their value supersedes positional value. I felt that way about Ashton Genty last year. I felt that way about Brock Bowers, coincidentally, to Las Vegas Raiders. I feel that way about certain players that are they're just weapons. They're just chess pieces. They're just players that, yes, they play a certain position, but no matter where you put them on the field, they are going to make an impact. I love adding Jeremiah Love into that backfield with Cam Ward. I love the idea of reliable go-to backs for young quarterbacks. And although it'd be a rookie running back, I still think Jeremiah Love can be an instant plug-and-play impact maker. And also, the Titans have a pretty good history of running backs. Earl Campbell, Eddie George, Derrick Henry. Jeremiah Love could be the next one in line of great running backs to ever wear that uniform. Different uniform now.
This is where everybody always tells me positional value, and I hear that. I guess my question is, if you let's go back to the Raiders example you mentioned a couple of years ago, Brock Bowers, and last year Ashton Genty. Okay. If they had taken instead whoever, the Elijah Vera Tucker, for example, who was a guard that was available around the same time, if they had taken that style of offensive lineman, would they have won drastically more games? I don't know. When you suck, and I can't say this loud enough, the teams that we're talking about picking in the top 4 all have sucked for a very long time. When you suck, you need good players. You need great players. You need to not miss on your pick in the top 10. And I know I hear it all the time when we talk about positional value. I think there's some value to that. But at the same time, I would ask everybody that says, oh, man, why would you take a running back at 4? Running back won't win you games. Okay, Will taking a safety at 4 win you games? Will taking one middle linebacker at 4 win you games? Will taking an edge rusher win you games? Because last time I checked, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby haven't won a lot of football games. Will taking a left tackle win you football games? No, like, you got to get them all right. So to me, like, we get so cute with the draft and positional value where we're like, oh, man, no, wins above replacement, don't take a running back there. Then you take somebody you shouldn't have taken, and all of a sudden 3 years, 4 years later, they're no longer on your team, and you're sitting there saying, why did we make this complicated? Like, if the Titans board says that Jeremiah Love is the best player, you need players. You need difference makers. And that's the number of people that text me when Brock Bowers was drafted by the Raiders and told me, why would you do that? You already have a tight end in the room. Why would you do that? And I kept laughing and saying, you know what I don't want to do? I don't want to draft a reach. I don't want to say, well, what we really need here is a right guard. So we're going to go ahead and get that right guard. We really need a right tackle. Or, I don't know, we can get a running back later. No, you can't. You can't get somebody later because you suck at drafting. Like, the reason you're bad is you suck at drafting. So presuming that you're just going to find a running back in the 4th round when you're bad at this, I don't think makes any sense. To me, go get when you're picking in the top 10, go get the BPA and don't make it difficult. So that's why I land on Jeremiah Love, which brings us to the New York Football Giants. We got Harbaugh. We got now I already took Jeremiah Love to the Titans. And let me be clear. If Jeremiah Love is available, I think Harbaugh, should strip down to his skivvies and just do cartwheels all the way down the road and then, boom, hand in the cart. Like, Jeremiah Love to the Giants, boom, I love that. But he's already gone.
I would love that.
Oh, is that what you're doing? Love? You love there?
I would love that. I would love Brian Dable using Jeremiah Love. And I know everyone's saying, but what about Cam Scatterboo? You don't pass up on Jeremiah Love because of Cam Scatterboo, okay? Love him very much. He was wonderful. He's very fun. But I think that we might overvalue Cam Scatterboo a little bit just because of how fun of a personality he is. You don't pass up on Jeremiah Love because you already have Cam Scatterboo. But adding Jeremiah Love in the pass game and the run game, what if we said so much about Jackson Dart? He needs a go-to guy so Jackson Dart doesn't feel like he has to be Superman. Malik Neighbors comes back, gets healthy. Jeremiah Love plugs into this offense. Mwah, I would love it. But in our hypothetical game, Jeremiah Love's off the board. So what the Giants do is take Caleb Downs because everyone has told me if Jeremiah Love isn't the best player in this draft, it's Caleb Downs. Yes, he's a safety. Do you typically take safeties with the top 5 pick? No, you don't. But Caleb Downs, like we've mentioned, is better than positional value. Caleb Downs can play close to the line of scrimmage and be a run stopper. He can play one-on-one. He can go deep and he can run toe for toe with the quickest receivers in college football this past year. So I think that I would view Caleb Downs as a defensive weapon more than he's just a safety. So if I'm the Giants, I would run to take Caleb Downs or a tackle, like the best tackle available. But Caleb Downs is more fun than that.
Yeah, no, I'm taking Caleb Downs. And I'm sitting here saying, how did the best player in this draft get all the way down to me at 5? And, to your point with Harbaugh and with Scatterboo, I want to remind everybody, the 5th overall pick in the NFL draft in year 1 will make $8.2 million, okay? I just looked it up. Cam this year is scheduled to have a cap hit of $918,000. So basically, you could have a two-headed monster at the running back position for $9 million. What are we talking about here? Like, if you have that chance, you take that chance. But Caleb comes in and just an immediate difference maker. We just saw this in Seattle, right? Like a guy that can do a million different things has so much impact on a defense. I believe Caleb Downs is an immediate game changer for your entire defense. I think he's the best player in the draft. So if all you have to do is sit there and get the best player in the draft, things are going pretty well. All right, plenty of time to keep breaking down the NFL draft. But coming up, the NCAA tournament is right around the corner, and oh no, it might have just gotten a lot more difficult for OHIO to get in.
What is the process as a receiver winning against zone coverage? Is it more settling down? Is it finding holes? Walk us through the process.
Yeah,
there.
so like the first thing that you want to look at is those safeties, right? So then you just look at your triangle. So I go safeties to nickel backer or nickel or backer and then out to that corner, is it gonna be cover 2? Like, are they showing 3 right now because they're gonna roll into 2? Are those safeties low? Like, just seeing those subtleties are really what makes you a really good zone player.
You don't want to get ahead of yourself when you think that he's going to come and be a game changer. He's more of a managerial type that can operate at a high level. I've made the comparison to Jared Goff in terms of how he'll play the game within the right system. The best thing that has happened to Fernando Mendoza is Clint Kubiak bringing his system to the Las Vegas Raiders. And when surrounded by the right talent, he can have a lot of success.
We got the announcement that Floyd Mayweather will be taking on Manny Pacquiao in a rematch. People will watch, people will tune in, and I'm curious to see how it looks. Like, I think they're going to be around the same skill level if they both come in healthy, and I really think it is significant that Floyd Mayweather is putting the L on the line.
100%. How do you make the competitive balance the most even? I think Manny and Floyd at this stages in their life, that makes it fair and exciting. So I'm in on Mayweather Pacquiao too.
A little Saban for us because everybody loves Saban. So, give us your thoughts.
I knew that you were going to bring me in here and have me do Nick Saban for him.
Have you done Saban for Saban?
No, but I met him.
Okay.
And he didn't know that it was me. And he shook my hand, and I said, Coach, Joey Molinaro, so good to finally meet you, as if he would know who I was. And he just looked at me and goes, yeah, well, all right. Walked away.
Fun fact, all the way back in the day, a long time ago, the Miami of Ohio football team was called the Land of the Giant Killers all the way back in the 50s, 60s because of their upsets. Yesterday, that turned its head around as Miami of Ohio's basketball team no longer has a perfect season. The Red Hawks suffered their first loss in their conference tournament. This is the very worst-case scenario that Miami of Ohio fans have been wringing their hands for weeks. And it started this massive conjecture yesterday, all the debate yesterday, Caroline. Do they get in? Do they not get in? I saw Joe Lunardi say, if an undefeated team in the regular season doesn't get in, then we have lost our way, which is such a altruistic, beautiful way to see the world. I don't trust a committee. I don't trust any of it. And it's not that easy, right? 31-0 regular season, erased by lunchtime on a Thursday by UMass. Is Miami of Ohio still in this thing?
Oh, it's hard. It's hard. I want them to be in because, we can talk about deserving. We can talk about best teams all day long. But at the end of the day, I want a good story. And I think Miami of Ohio has been one of the best stories in college basketball this year. And if Miami of Ohio gets into the postseason, it's going to be either you love Miami of Ohio and that's your Cinderella and you're riding with them, or you hate Miami of Ohio because you're an Indiana fan or a Texas fan or an Auburn fan and they kept your team out of it. So either way, it's going to be fun because it's going to be controversial. And I love that. I think that would be, a fun storyline in the NCAA tournament. I don't think that they do get in, though. Now, Miami of Ohio, the knock against them is that they had, the 275th ranked strength of schedule, something ridiculous like that. Miami of Ohio didn't really play anybody, whereas the Auburns of the world or the Indianas of the world were much higher in strength of schedule. But Miami of Ohio, where things stand right now, they're 64th in the net rankings. Now, net is just one piece of a full resume. There's Ken Palm, there's net, there's who you've beaten, who you've lost to, what you have looked like recently in recent games. All of those are data points on a team's resume. But when it comes down to it, I think that the committee is going to defer to the bigger brands. Although that's not a data point, I think the committee is going to defer to the teams that at least scheduled more difficult teams on their schedule. Now, what we heard from some coaches in the MAC, at least what we heard from UMass's coach last night in the postgame press conference, he was banging on the table for Miami of Ohio to get in. And he was saying it's just not fair that we can't get into the tournament because our because our strength of schedule isn't very high. Nobody wants to schedule us. Who in their right minds, what Power 4 tournament hopeful team is going to schedule a team like Miami of Ohio that if they beat them, it doesn't look great for their resume. And if they lose to them, it's detrimental. So I do think that is a very, very fair point. I don't want to use the word precedent because I think we use the word precedent way too much with, College Football Playoff Committee and the NCAA Tournament Committee. This isn't the court of law. We're not setting precedent here. The committee can do whatever they want, whenever they want. They can change their minds year over year. But what I do think it would be doing is sending kind of a dangerous message If Miami of Ohio does get left out, it sends a very dangerous message to teams in conferences like the MAC or smaller mid-major programs that it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. If you don't win your conference tournament, you're not going to have an opportunity to get in the postseason. And I think that's a dangerous message to send.
The hardest part about this is that we see this all the time, right? Like the hardest part about this to me is that we have to understand that this is just part of what happens in college basketball for mid-major teams. And that doesn't make it feel good. That doesn't make any of us happy. But to me, Caroline, like you and I both have a lot of experience around Belmont basketball in Nashville, right? Like Belmont actually had a much higher strength of schedule than Miami of Ohio did, and a similar strength of resume than Miami of Ohio did. Nobody's crying about the fact that Belmont lost in their conference tournament and now is going to be left out. Now, Belmont wasn't undefeated in their season. So we see a 0, and we think that it has to mean something. But I guess I would ask the world to oversimplify here. If Caroline and I play 2-on-2 against third graders for the entire course of the year and we go undefeated, and then there's a massive tournament at the end of the year where there's a bunch of NBA teams, do we belong in simply because we beat up on a bunch of third graders? I know this is all disrespectful. I get the tone that nobody likes. My question for you is, my God, how many NCAA tournaments teams do we need? All right, like we already know that this entire tournament is bloviated with every single team that you could possibly imagine. So the very simple question is Miami of Ohio, not the record, is this team right now, if we went into a gym, would this team be one of the 68 best teams in college basketball? That, to me, is the only thing that the committee needs to consider. Not what they did, not how many games they won, not what their margin of victory was, not whether or not it sends a bad message. You ask yourself a very simple question. There are 68 teams. Like, if you're one of the 68 best, get in. If you're not one of the 68 best, stay out. And if somebody auto bids and takes one of those away from you, where suddenly you were the 64th best team, but no longer are there 64 automatic bids left, I don't really give a damn. Like, if you're not one of the 64 best in that situation, then watch the tournament. I know it doesn't feel fair because Miami of Ohio was undefeated this year in their regular season. But as I've said a million times, this is why mid-major tournaments shouldn't exist. If you really want to get rid of this issue, don't look to the NCAA tournament. Don't look to the committee. Look to your own conference and say, hey, guys, we probably shouldn't do a tournament that decides this if we want to truly value our regular season champion. Like, it's up to these mid-major conferences. Decide that you're going to crown your champion based only on the regular season. Don't have a tournament, or have a mid-season tournament and do it in a different way. Have a tournament at the beginning of the year. I don't care what it is, but you're the ones that allow this tournament to exist because you want the money. Don't ask the committee to save your ass when you took the money from this tournament and suddenly say, well, now don't factor in the tournament, guys. We want our auto bid over here, but we want you also to recognize Miami of Ohio. That's not the committee's job. Committee's job is best, and that's it.
And one thing that I would like to point out, I've heard a lot of people saying like, oh, well, and Indiana's going to get in because they play in the Big Ten, or Auburn's going to get in because they play in the SEC, and Miami of Ohio is not going to get in because they play in the MAC. What conference you play in does not matter. Like, it does not matter at all. The committee doesn't put in a certain number of teams from each respective conference or leave a team out because there's too many teams from their conference. Like, what conference you play in doesn't matter. It's all about who you play. And of course, the SEC is more competitive than the MAC. It doesn't take a neuroscience degree to understand that. The reason why an Auburn would get the benefit of the doubt is because Auburn played Houston. It's because Auburn played, I believe they had Duke on their schedule. I don't have their schedule up in front of me. But Auburn played some absolute heavy hitters. They played Houston. They played Oregon. They played Michigan. They played St. John's. They played Arizona. They played Purdue. And that's outside of the SEC. Miami of Ohio doesn't have those kind of games on their schedule. So to your point, and look, if I was on the committee today, I would say if you're 64th in the net, then sure, you would be one of the last teams in. But if it's just going to be the difference of Auburn versus Miami of Ohio, I would have to give the benefit of the doubt to Auburn. And if Miami of Ohio wants to get in, one, schedule more difficult games in non-conference. UConn women's basketball does that because they know they play in the Big East, which is absolutely crap. So they schedule Tennessee and USC and Notre Dame on their non-conference schedule, and that way with any strength of schedule arguments. The second thing is, you want to get into the tournament, win your conference tournament. Like, that that's what you have to do. That is the one prerogative to get into the NCAA tournament. Does it suck? Yeah, it sucks. Does it feel a little unfair because you took care of business in the regular season? 1000% it does. But this process isn't always fair. Everyone's going to feel like anyone left out on the bubble is going to feel like they didn't get a fair shake. And if Miami of Ohio is in that atmosphere, well, sorry. That is what it is.
I don't believe in participation awards. I don't believe in participation awards for postseason tournaments either. So at the end of the day, for anyone that wants to yell about what the committee should do, again, the reminder, the MAC is still getting a bid to the NCAA tournament. They're not being left out of the tournament. Somebody else is going because of their own construct. And if your answer is, well, Miami of Ohio tried to schedule different teams, better teams, and they couldn't, I don't really care. I just don't care about that answer. My only question to you is, on a neutral field today, would you bet your house on Auburn or Miami of Ohio if they played? That's what the committee has to decide. And if they decide that Miami of Ohio is better, great, let them in. If they don't, great, don't let them in. It is that simple for me. Nothing is ever that simple.
I hope they do
though.
get
So
in.
It
would be so fun.
I would love to see them get in just because collectively more people will lose their minds, I think. I just want total chaos. You know me. I'm an agent of chaos. Chaos always comes, by the way, in the form of the Sundays. I'm trying to find the right way to say this. The tournament bracket. There we go. Chaos always comes from these announcements. Caroline and I will both be there for you Sunday. I'll be hanging out tournament bracket live right here on Yahoo Sports Network. Monday, you'll see Caroline. We'll be hanging out with you. I'm hosting 8 p.m. Eastern with KOC. King McClure, Dallin Cuff, going to be electric. Caroline's on the women's show with Ice Young, Jordan Robinson, and Cassandra Negley Monday afternoon at noon. We'll break down all the reasons. We'll give you Cinderellas and much, much more. Check it out on YouTube or right here on the Yahoo Sports Network. Coming up next, we will get all the thoughts from our buddy. Going to figure out what to make of this from Vegas' eyes. Ben Fox joining the show next.
Criticism like that from a coach. In the moment, how are you feeling when that's happening and the film's on screen?
Yeah, man, I think it's you listen more to the message and not the tone of the message. I mean, I think it's actually better to get called out than to not, because it shows not only like you're not worried about getting your feelings hurt. Like, they're not worried about hurting my feelings. And that's something I love about our coach. Like, he's not really worried about hurting your feelings. He's going to tell you, shoot it to you straight. And for me, like, I've always thrived under coaches that do that.
We are ranking the biggest robberies in MLS histories, the players who looked at their team owners and said, thanks for the cash, and gave absolutely nothing in return. If your team is on this list, we are very, very sorry. Danielson, FC Dallas. His contract was for $879,000.
If you're watching this, look at his photo. He don't even look interested to be there in the photo.
With 10 appearances, he effectively got nearly $100,000 per game.
I'm sitting there watching Unreal, and they're talking about you in WWE at the Royal Rumble, just being thrown into the ring. You ever getting back in the ring for one of those opportunities again after that injury?
Man, I don't know. I mean, we got WrestleMania coming up, so you maybe see me in there, you maybe not. I'm just not trying to get beat up, but we'll see. We'll see. Like, I got beat up too much times. My body can't take that anymore.
We'll teaser from the one and only Nate Diaz, unfinished business. And then he expanded on that on Twitter and said, I'll see you soon. I'm coming.
What about Dustin? Dustin versus Nate. Big fight. That could be a co-main or a main for a big fight card.
One that we always wanted to see.
One that Dustin has said, that'll get me out of retirement. The UFC could use him more than ever. They need stars now.
March Madness is the second biggest betting event in the United States behind the Super Bowl. And because of that, the NCAA is ramping up security. Over 220 referees and umpires working the men's and women's tournaments will be monitored through a system that cross-checks anonymized IDs with sportsbook data to flag potential betting activity. Welcome to sports in 2026. So what does all of that mean? To break it all down for us, we bring in our senior betting analyst, Ben Fox. Ben, it is lovely to see your face and hoping to see even more of it as we break down the brackets over this weekend on Selection Sunday and Selection Monday. But first, I want to touch on that because that is kind of a scary tweet for me to read, that we as a society have gotten so obsessed with blaming officials for certain things, for winning bets and losing bets, to the point that we have to ramp up security. So why and how is the NCAA taking some extra precautions this year? Oh, we don't have Ben. I can see him trying to talk. Can't hear him.
Oh, you got me?
There we go. There we go. The
Oh,
old mute
perfect.
button. It'll get you.
All good. I would say ramping up security, this is more like a generalized term than some high stakes, we're ramping something up. In general, this is kind of an overall reaction to what we've seen, certainly in other sports with integrity issues. We've seen things in the NBA and obviously college basketball as well, and baseball. And so this is essentially the NCAA partnering with a technology via essentially an integrity monitoring company. And it's basically if a referee, they have all the names and identification of the referees who'll be working both the men's tournaments and the women's tournaments. And it's essentially saying, hey, if they sign up for a sportsbook account, we're going to flag that, we're going to monitor that, and we're going to kind of make sure there's nothing going on there, because obviously we've seen issues in other sports, and with how much money is going to be bet now on the NCAA tournament, now we also have the rise of prediction markets. So there's a lot of different areas of the NCAA tournament. There's going to be a lot more eyes on it as well. Obviously, a lot more legalized states than there's ever been, more money bet on the NCAA tournament than there's ever been, and the women's. And so this is just kind of another step to take. It should also be noted that this kind of started earlier in the season in the fall, when the NCAA also announced they're going to have player availability reports for injuries, right? So that all the teams are going to have to, the night before, basically put that forward. Think of this like the NFL injury report, right? That we get throughout the week. But teams didn't have to do this before for the NCAA tournament. Now it is mandated. And again, that's just another integrity monitoring system, making sure everything's in place and kind of making sure, hey, everything's on the up and up. We know what the teams are, both obviously for the teams that are playing, and then for gambling and gambling companies, just to say, hey, this is easier to, set the lines, and that everything's on the up and up. So obviously a lot of eyeballs on this, and those are kind of a couple ways that the tournament now, both on the men's side and the women's side, is looking to kind of shore up that integrity and just make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. I usually mess that phrase up, so I'm glad I got that time.
I mess it up every single time. I'm with you there. And look, I'm all for making sure that we can maintain integrity of the game. I'm all for that. All of these leagues are all for that, because if they don't have integrity, then they don't have anything. Do you see this being something that's implemented, league-wide, sport-wide? Do you see it being something that even kind of elevates into professional levels? Like, is this something that we're going to see in college football, in the NFL, in the NBA, so on and so forth?
On the referee side, you're saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's kind of no reason not to, right? Obviously, this is just kind of an extra step, right? The officials are also under the same rules as the players, right? They're not allowed to bet on these sports for obvious reasons. This is just kind of another thing to match. Hey, we know this person is an official. Now we're using this system, and that's just another kind of check and balance that we can have for this. And the injury reports, I think, is a great thing as well, just because this, the NCAA tournament is a little bit of its own kind of separate thing. We obviously have seen this a lot in the NBA, right? With tanking and who's playing, who isn't playing on kind of a nightly basis. Certainly for the NCAA tournament, there aren't any competitive advantages, right? In terms of like, hey, we're not playing this player because we're saving him for X. It's single elimination. You win, and move on. So, but it's mostly, like we said, for gambling and integrity, just to know, hey, here's who's available. If we said this person is questionable before and then they don't play, or vice versa, there's potential fines for teams. And this is, obviously something a lot of people are going to have their eye on for this tournament.
And something that this tournament specifically is probably going to have a lot of attention, in terms of integrity, because this is one of the biggest betting events of the sports calendar. March Madness is the second biggest betting event, only behind the Super Bowl. So how much money is expected to be wagered on the NCAA tournament this year?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And so the Super Bowl kind of is the biggest day. And then I would say March Madness, according to estimates, is basically the biggest event. And obviously event kind of loosely termed, because it's over the course of a couple weeks. And you also have 2 tournaments with the men's tournament and the women's tournament. But the American Gaming Association for the Super Bowl, they estimated $1.76 billion would be wagered on that this year. The estimate for the men's and women's tournament, which was released this morning, was $3.3 billion, which even early in the morning, that's roughly double. So there, and this also doesn't include bracket pools, office pools, or prediction markets, right? So there's probably more money legally and definitely illegally wagered on March Madness. It's a massive event, both on the men's side and on the women's side. That's up the estimate, by the way, from 3.1 billion last year and 2.7 billion the year before. So as you would kind of expect, as sports betting is now kind of more widespread, there are also more ways legally to bet it. There are more states online, Missouri coming online this past year as well. So more opportunities, more kind of places that you can wager. And I think more interest, certainly, as it's kind of become a bigger event on the sports and betting calendar post Super Bowl. You got the Masters coming up, NFL draft, NBA playoffs, a bunch of other things. And then there's baseball, but there's a long gap until football season, March Madness, especially as we know that Thursday and Friday next week. There's nothing else really like it.
Jeez. I mean, there's a reason why there's skyscrapers in the desert. $3.3 billion on the NCAA tournament is one of the reasons
It's a lot of cheddar. Yeah.
It's a lot of cheddar. That is for sure. Heard that. But there's plenty of ways that you can get involved in being invested into March Madness. It's not just on the sports books, but also with your bracket, with Yahoo's Bracket Mayhem, of course. So break down for us and for everyone looking to get invested into March Madness some ways that your strategy could differ in making your bracket versus wagering on the actual games themselves.
Yeah, and listen, I can't give out too many tips because we're competing against our CEO Jim here, so I gotta keep that. No, it's all
close to the vest.
Difficult to pick. Exactly. No, look, I think there's a lot of betting information you can use to kind of help fill out your brackets. But ultimately, the bracket kind of size is a big determination of some of your strategy, right? So I like to say the size of your pool and then kind of the relative skill level, I guess, if you will, or knowledge level of the other participants in your pool should dictate a little bit some of kind of the upsets, the number of upsets you're picking, how many, how far some of those teams are going. In other words, if you have a pool that has 1,000 people in it, 2,000 people, the chances are a lot of people, especially who don't know a lot about college basketball, they're going to see those 1 seeds. They're going to advance those pretty far, right? They're probably going to have a 1 seed as national champion. Obviously, most of the time, the 1 seeds don't all reach the Final Four. Last year, we saw it does happen. So every year is certainly unique. But typically, you're going to want to have kind of fewer upsets. You have to go a little more contrarian if that pool is larger. And then conversely, if it's a really small pool where there's, 10, 20, 30, 40 people in it, you can go a little chalkier, right? Because it's unlikely that people probably are going to put all of those favorites through. You have a better chance if you put those favorites through. There's not as many people, so there won't be as that wide variance as you're going to get where, if there's 1,000 people and, Jeff from accounting just has a great, the favorite there and passed everything through, it's going to be difficult to beat them. So I think that's one of them. It is important as well. Everyone loves to pick upsets, but 14 of the last 18 national champions have been 1 seeds. So it's always, you want to pick some upsets as well, but you don't want to get too carried away, as we'll discuss as well, just kind of with what that bracket looks like. The second thing, you always sounds simple. Do your research. Yahoo has a great tool that isn't available everywhere, which is the public pick percentage tab. Basically, you can see as the brackets get filled out how many people are picking each team, right? And that's, again, valuable if you want to go with some of those people or you want to go against some of those people and kind of potentially make up ground depending on how you feel about an upset or something else. Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, there's a lot of analytics sites you can use to do your research. Since 1985, 35 of the 40 national champions have been a top 3 seed. So again, with those upsets, maybe earlier in the rounds, but you're going to want to have some of those top 3 seeds advancing further as well, and looking at that. And that's really where I would focus a lot of my research, is those top 3 seeds, and hey, how do they stack up a little further, further down the line? And then I'd say, just, it sounds simple, but know the spreads, right? Like every 5-12 matchup in the bracket, it's just a 5-12. But the spread could be very different. One 5 seed could be an 8-point favorite over a 12. One could be a 4-point favorite. In the bracket, it looks like, hey, I just picked a 12 over a 5. They have a different chance of winning. So knowing that, not a lot of people will know that as well. So those are a couple things for filling out the bracket using the betting.
And look, the Cinderellas and the upsets, those are your bracket busters. Those are going to be the one where Jeff from accounting is like, oh my gosh, how could I not have picked St. Peter's over Kentucky? But
Of course.
on the women's side of things, yeah, of course. Why didn't I think of that? On the women's side of things, we see fewer Cinderellas. We see fewer upsets. Now, UConn is currently the favorite, minus 275 entering the tournament to win the entire thing. But we also see UCLA. We also see Texas, South Carolina, and LSU behind UConn in title odds. So just provide some context to us. Clearly, UConn far and beyond the favorite against the rest of the field on the women's side of things. So just add some context for all of us on the betting side of things on this year's Huskies team.
Yeah. So first of all, overall, as you said, definitely true that the women's side tends to be a little more top heavy and a little, I wouldn't say easier to predict, right? But you have a better chance probably with some of those favorites making at least the Final Four. And to that point, in the futures market, just looking at BetMGM, they had 8 teams with odds of 100 to 1 or better on the women's side. So there were only 8 teams, right? That's not a lot. On the men's side, there are 18, right? So a lot more teams that at least 100 to 1 still is a long shot, right? But a lot more teams potentially that can win it. And as we see in that graphic as well, UConn is the odds-on favorite. They're minus 275. That's the shortest favorite of any women's basketball team in the last 4 years as well. South Carolina last year was minus 145. South Carolina's been the favorite the last 3 years. It was plus 270 last year, minus 135 in 2024 when they won, and minus 145 in 2023. So UConn is a bigger favorite than any of those. It should be said for South Carolina, they were the favorite 3 times there. They only won the tournament once. Obviously, UConn looking very good, undefeated, and they beat South Carolina last year in the title game. So typically we see the favorites in the women's side move on, at least, like I said, to the Final Four. There are potentially upsets, but typically it's a little chalkier than the men's side historically.
And if you're just looking at the favorites there, it's pretty easy to bet on Gino Auriemma and Dawn Staley, period, but especially in the postseason. But it's a lot more difficult to bet on, like a Kyler Murray. So we'll get into that coming up next. Kyler Murray is headed to Minnesota. We'll also react to the rest of NFL free agency and get Ben Fox's perspective on how you bet on some NFL futures. Coming up next here on Yahoo Sports Daily.
Well, one of the things, too, that keeps coming up, I keep hearing, and it kept coming up in response to my story after the hearing and during the hearing, is, hey, why doesn't he just go pro? Imagine being a college kid and making $5 million plus.
It's pretty easy. It's just money, guys. It's guaranteed money. This is probably, for most of these individuals, the last time they can make this much money playing the sport.
How can I sit here in one breath and say the sport is broken when it looks like the audience is more pleased with the sport than ever? It's not broke. It's just we've been drinking out of a fire hose for 3 years. But it can't just be pay them, kick them off the team, next guy, next team. I worry about these kids' long-term health and what they're going to do with their lives when they're 26 and 27, when they have no roots at any university.
James Rodriguez is reportedly joining Minnesota United. The main thing as a fan of the league, I would just be excited to see him play. And then Minnesota against NYCFC, get to go see James. And what if that game is at City Field, bro? Queens is going to lose their
It's
mind.
going to go nuts. Astoria and Jackson Heights will be empty. There will be 3 Uruguayans, 4 Argentinians, and 6 Mexicans, and all of Jackson Heights go, what the hell's going on? Where is everybody?
Admittedly, I'm a huge fan of Travis Hunter as a prospect. Do you have any sense of what his growth is going to be like, where he might be playing more and more, what his role is going to look like, especially on the offensive side?
The way he is, his personality, I think this injury in rookie year is only going to just make him better. He was starting to really get going on offense, and we were starting to click. So who knows what the rep count looks like, but I know he's a special receiver when he gets the ball in his hands.
Ben Fox texted 3 different odds makers about Kyler Murray's value to the spread relative to JJ McCarthy. And all 3 had Kyler as more valuable, but by under a field goal. Vikings go from 60-1 to 50-1 to win Super Bowl 61 following the signing. Now we hang on with our friend Ben Fox, Yahoo Sports' betting insider. Now, Ben, you are a Minnesota Vikings fan. So feel free, by all means, put your purple tinted glasses on. We celebrate that here on this show. But explain to all of us the impact that sports books expect Kyler Murray to have on the Minnesota Vikings this year.
Yeah, I'll separate my objective journalist, Big J, which was this tweet, right? Sending out to odds makers just because I sent this same tweet with Tua when he went to the Falcons against Michael Penix Jr. So to me, it's always interesting just kind of the potential difference against the spread, because we always try and measure, right, the quarterback relative to their backup, because it's not the quarterback against any backup. That's somewhat irrelevant. It's the quarterback over the specific backup who would go in the game if that starter got injured. I think for Kyler, it was a little interesting for me. I would have thought it'd be a little higher than that. Now, obviously, this is a reaction in March. We haven't seen Kyler for a long time since he hurt that foot. Seemed like maybe he was healthy enough to come back. The Cardinals said, we're good. We're going to put you on IR. So we haven't seen him play football in a long time, which I think probably depresses that value a bit. And JJ McCarthy did play a little better towards the end of the season, so maybe that increases his value a little more. But ultimately, I think this is just where odds makers are going to see. We saw a little bit of the Super Bowl impact as well. Obviously, we'll still have the draft. We still have some of free agency, so the teams aren't completely formulated. But this is a very lucky, I said, fortuitous thing for the Vikings to be able to get a quarterback who, when he's played, I believe at least double-digit games, he's had a QBR over 50, which is basically the league average in each of those seasons, including one where he was an MVP candidate for the first half of the season. So we know that Kyler kind of has proof of concept as an elite quarterback in the NFL, whereas with JJ McCarthy, the hope is that one day, with a lot more seasoning, he could get to that point of being, we'll say an above average, league average starter, maybe if everything goes well, an MVP candidate. But Kyler's already done that previously. And so I think it raises the ceiling of the team overall. And you assume that if that defense is better, and certainly it seems like it'll be okay, even with a couple players that they lost, it's just a team that, because they were so bad and they were out of the playoff race, I don't think the national consciousness, understandably, was kind of paying attention. And whether or not it was good that they won a couple games late and got a worse draft pick, I don't think people realize that the Vikings were above 500 with a combination of Carson Wentz, JJ McCarthy, and Max Brosmer as their quarterbacks. They went 9-8 with those quarterbacks. So if you have Kyler Murray, even him playing kind of at his worst is better than JJ McCarthy last year at his best. So I think you just have a much higher floor and certainly a much higher ceiling. Again, assuming he can stay healthy. I do think him getting cut as well, right? All of those things we heard about in Arizona, potentially concerns about off the field or work ethic things. He now has an opportunity for 1 year, prove it with a very good veteran team. And then there's also that clause in the contract, he can't be franchise tagged, right? So this is a real win-win. Incentives are aligned for both sides, for Kyler to rebuild his value, the Vikings to have a shot to help JJ McCarthy maybe grow in the long term and win in the short term. And that's what they didn't have last year. They didn't have that quarterback who could elevate a roster that was ready to win now.
I think every member of that team owes Brian Flores a thank you note. Half of last season and how disastrous the quarterback position was. But I want to go from one purple team to another. The Ravens have been a fascinating little case study over the past couple of years. Obviously, we know they traded the 2 first-round picks for Max Crosby. They rescinded the trade, but the Ravens saw their odds to win the Super Bowl after the trade was initially announced. They became the favorites to win the AFC. They became favorites to find themselves in Los Angeles out of the AFC side of things. But obviously, we know they rescinded the trade. They signed Trey Hendrickson. So how have their Super Bowl odds moved since then?
Yeah, so this has been really interesting just to kind of see the shifts. And look, there's the football side and the doctor's side, and whether this was in good faith and all that. To me, I'm the betting guy, so that's all for someone else to discuss. We just say, how did this impact the odds? And it was interesting that it kind of stayed the same even in the time after they had signed Max Crosby and then had kind of gotten out of that deal and before they had signed Trey Hendrickson. I think that was probably sportsbooks keeping it at that higher number, assuming that they were going to get somebody as close to the Ravens, as close to Max Crosby as they could, which obviously they did in Trey Hendrickson. We can see in that the Ravens as well, off of that first move with Max Crosby, and now the same now, they are the best team, the team with the best odds in actually the entire NFL and the AFC to make the playoffs at -400. They're the favorite in the AFC North, I believe, at -140. At BetMGM, they are the second favorite now. The Bills jumped them. But at other sports books, they're the favorite to win the AFC. And there's really kind of Super Bowl tiers this early on. It's really the Seahawks and the the Seahawks and the Rams up top, and then the Ravens and the Bills. And then there's kind of a gap as well to the Chiefs, the Chargers, Packers, some other teams after that. So the Ravens as well, off of that deal, they moved up their win total. There were a bunch of teams that were at 10.5. I believe there were 10 teams that BetMGM had with a win total of 10.5. The Ravens moved up to 11.5. And then recently the LA Rams as well moved up to 11.5. So the Ravens have tied for the highest win total in the league, the best odds to make the playoffs. And odds makers have always basically loved their value as well. They've had them high in power ratings. As our producer Hutton will know, they've disappointed in the playoffs, and certainly last year wasn't the year that they would want. But this is a team that kind of has all the pieces and certainly on paper looks like it's ready to compete. And they're going to be right there with some of the best teams in the AFC, where seemingly every contender is reloading this offseason.
All right, quickly, Ben, before we get you out of here in 30 seconds or less, Team USA in the World Baseball Classic is still the favorite to win it all, but should they still be? Is there a better value elsewhere?
Listen, I'm patriotic as well. I think you got to go with Team USA. This is where you as a bettor figure out your priors versus what you've seen on the field. So if you think Team USA is still the best team and they just kind of had a bad game, you stick to Team USA. They're a 4.5 run line favorite tonight. They should beat Canada. They're -800 on the money line. I think they still get it done and push there into the finals and win it all.
From your lips to God's ears, Ben Fox, you are the absolute best. Appreciate you for hanging out with us today, and we'll catch up with you very, very soon talking some March Madness. Appreciate you, Ben.
Sounds good.
Ben Fox, senior betting analyst for Yahoo Sports. Appreciate his time. But remember, you can catch Fitz and myself this Sunday for the men's tournament bracket breakdown and Monday for the women's tournament breakdown for Tourney Bracket Live right here on the Yahoo Sports Network. You can catch Fitz hosting the men's show at 8 o'clock Eastern time with Kevin O'Connor, King McClure, and Dallin Cuff. I'll be on the women's show with Ice Young, Jordan Robinson, and Cassandra Negley Monday at noon. We'll break down all things you need to know for the tournament bracket, so we'll see you then.